Hi, everyone. It's Stephanie with the Patient Story, and I am so excited to introduce today's guest who's sharing his story, his experience after getting diagnosed with CLL. Stephen, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and I've gotten the chance to talk to you already, and I'm really excited because I think your story will resonate with so many people. But before we dive into that, I like to start off by asking people to tell us a little bit more about themselves, even outside of the cancer context, because as we know, that doesn't define who we are, right? So, how could you maybe introduce yourself a little bit?
Let me see. I am a very multifaceted guy. 61 years old. I am a happily married father, grandfather, father of two girls, grandfather of four, ranging in age from 11 down to 2. I reside in suburban Philadelphia. Work for Wells Fargo Bank. That's my professional side. My passion side has always revolved around multi-sport racing, triathlon, marathoning, multi-sport activities, and things like that. Including have been a run coach and a triathlon coach for many, many years. Prior to that, if you turn the pages way back, I come from a soccer background, went to a local college on a soccer scholarship, and then continued to play pretty high caliber soccer for a number of years until I discovered the beauty of multi-sport racing and marathoning, which some people would have a real problem with me calling that beautiful, because most people look at me and say, why in God's name do you do what you do? But for me, that's my passion. That's fun for me.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that how active you are is part of the, identity you've brought through, even after getting diagnosed with cancer, that has played a big role in your life. And so excited to dip into that as well. But let's rewind. I know it was 15 years ago when you first, came face to face, so to speak, with cancer in terms of getting diagnosed. So can you bring us back to 2005? It was around the late period. You started feeling symptoms. What were they, and how did you finally get diagnosed?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it was late 2005. I was experiencing a number of symptoms, including fatigue. The most prominent one was difficulty in swallowing, right? But I was just kind of feeling generally just crummy. But I have to give you the backstory that says 2005 was a horrible year for our family. My father had been hospitalized, had a Nerf football sized tumor removed from his pleural cavity, never made it out of intensive care, passed away a few months later. Um, I was registered to race a full distance Ironman triathlon that July. So we're talking mid 2005, which I had a whole lot of trouble getting to, but my family insisted that I go to. And that was kind of contributing to my overall fatigue, and in talking to doctors, and I would describe the fatigue, and they would ask me what my lifestyle is, and they would say, well, you just went out for a 100-mile bike ride. Yeah, you're going to feel a little fatigued. But to me, I knew something was off. Something was just not quite right. So as many guys who maybe are not quite as diligent as they should be with keeping up on appointments, as long as they're feeling okay, maybe I was not ahead of some blood work the way I should have been, the way maybe I wasn't ahead of some preventative appointments and things like that. So when it came time to try to figure out why I was having this difficulty swallowing, it took several phone calls to my primary care physician, and we tried chasing the symptoms, not thinking it was anything evil, thinking it was something simple. So we would try antibiotics or steroids or anti-inflammatories, or just trying to figure out what was going on. Finally, none of that worked. He refers me to an ear, nose, and throat specialist who takes one look in my throat. Granted, I'm 45 years old at the time. And the ear, nose, and throat doc says, those tonsils are the worst things I've ever seen in my life. We have to get them removed yesterday, which made sense why I was having difficulty swallowing if I've got these two large things in the back of my throat. So I scheduled pre-admission blood work for the surgery for the tonsillectomy. And I got a call that nobody ever wants to get from the surgeon saying, Mr. Brown, we came across a little bit of a problem with your blood work. We'd like to refer you to a oncologist before we proceed. Do you have an oncologist? And of course, I'm looking at the phone. Why in God's name would I have an oncologist? I'm the healthiest person on the planet. So one thing led to the next. My wife was a nurse in a local practice, so she kind of knew how to get us to the front of the line of a preferred practice. And then we asked for the first available physician within that practice, met the guy. I can remember the dates like my own birth date. I met him for the first time February 17th of 2006, at which point it was more of a consult. It was more of a let's review the original blood work. It was let's consider some possibilities, and then let's order every test under the sun to try to figure out what's happening. So from 217 to 224, I had everything you could possibly imagine done.
Right.
And then 224, February 24th, 2006, I received my official diagnosis.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, I know that in the moment it felt a lot longer than how you're able to sum it up right now, but
Oh, yes.
I want to, before we shift over to the next section, I mean, when your first, the first person who was the ENT specialist, I mean, you're already at a specialist, you're thinking, okay, gosh, what do I have to do to get, this taken care of? And he says, oncologist. I mean, what was going through your head at that point? Because as we know, at least we know oncology means cancer, right? How did you process that? How did you talk to your family about that?
So my wife and I obviously were fully engaged with every conversation with any medical professional. So my initial reaction was, and I told Mary Grace, I said, these people are crazy. Something's not right. And it has nothing to do with oncology. Somebody's just not looking at the right chart. I was convinced that I, they're not, the diagnosis isn't right. The patient chart is not right. There's something that just doesn't, this has to be as simple as an infection that they're missing, something that's just, somebody's missing something. So I guess you can call it denial, but it was really, I was convinced that I'm right and everyone else is wrong, and there's no way in heck this could possibly be oncology related. But I agreed to play the game, to check all the boxes and rule everything out, which is why we had the conversations that we had. Thankfully, we had the conversations that we had. Right?
And the conversations, of course, are so important, so critical. And I know then, as you said, between that 217 to 224 is when things just kind of went haywire, and really felt like, I'm sure, so many things changing at once. Before we go there, I guess, do you have any guidance to people about how to navigate that first part when you are dealing with these first symptoms? I already heard an example of self advocacy where the doctors were saying, you are very active and that's what's making you fatigued, but you knew something wasn't right in your body. So, do you have a message for other people out there
Yeah,
about that?
you know your body more than any other doctor is going to know your body. So you just, I say we, the patient community, just needs to be fully dialed into what you're feeling. To any changes in routines, any changes in diet, any changes in weight, any changes in anything, you'll feel it. One of the first things my oncologist asks me when I check in every 3 months and we draw blood, and I immediately want to know, tell me what you're looking at. And he says, no, time out. Tell me how you're feeling, because that is such a, I won't say a more accurate indicator, but it's such an important indicator to your overall patient health. So I think it's really, really important to pay attention, to listen to your body. And again, it's one of the things my oncologist told me. He says, as you're going through treatment, be smart, listen to your body. If you feel that you can carry on with a run or with a workout, do it. But if you wake up one morning and you're the least bit fatigued, pull the plug, go home, get some rest. And I think people, they don't put enough trust or faith in their own interpretation of their own body and their own symptoms. And they tend to want to put everything on the shoulders of the medical experts who, yes, they can look at the diagnostics, they can evaluate you. In some cases, they're meeting you for the first time. So they're going to know something, but you're going to have a lot of the missing information. You're going to have a lot of the missing pieces, and you need to speak up, right? You need to be that advocate for yourself to say, nope, something doesn't sound right with what you're saying because it's not jiving with what I'm feeling.